Achieving compliance while avoiding complexity. Before we start, my name is Thibaut Gourdel. I've been working at Talend for 4 years, and today I'm going to present a session on data governance and in particular on regulations and compliance, and how Talend can help, and I will be doing a demo later. So let's get started. Data protection laws are inevitable. Most people think about General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, when the subject of data protection comes up. But that is far from the only legislation. According to Talend Group, today there are more than 120 countries already engaged in some form of international privacy laws for data protection to ensure that citizens and their data are offered a more rigorous protections and controls. For instance, in Canada, the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, or PIPEDA, sets out the rules for how businesses have to manage personal information when dealing with users or customers' data. You also have the CCPA in California or the LDPR in Brazil. Data protection laws are really inevitable in today's world, and that's only the beginning. We can anticipate that more restrictive and protective privacy laws are going to emerge in the future. But achieving compliance with those regulations is hard. First, the regulations are really burdensome for companies. Depending on the countries you are operating in and where your users or customers come from, you have to comply with all the different national regulations. For small and large organizations alike, it's a huge lift. Second, the data landscape is more complex than ever. Each department uses its own SaaS application that is integrated with those of other departments. Globally, organizations were using an average of 80 SaaS applications in 2020. And they also have data lakes and data warehouses on-prem or in the cloud. Being compliant in this context is challenging. In addition, you also have more data consumers in organizations. While data was mostly an IT responsibility in the past, data is now used by all departments and in different roles across organizations. Third, companies have to deal with new customer expectations. New regulations give rights to consumers and duties to companies. The most common right being the right to access. Customers now have the right to request all the information a service may have on them. In Europe, the GDPR introduced the right to be forgotten, for example. So, how Talend can help for the governance and compliance? First, by taking preventative measures easily, to institute automatic pervasive quality along with control and governance over protected data with a single platform. Then by keeping all data healthy with effective treatments to ensure compliance while maximizing access to information with a combination of automation and self-service applications. And then create a supportive culture across the data ecosystem to establish an organizational discipline around data sharing, care, and maintenance that ensures governed, trustworthy, and compliant data. So, more concretely, how can we comply while avoiding all the complexity? Well, it starts by discovering and controlling any personal data. And to do that, you have to use both technology and processes. First, you need to identify and define the personal data you collect and you store in your systems, and then you have to locate it so that you may start to control it. You need to protect this data while still letting the right accesses to it. So you don't lock it, but you control it. You have to balance control with autonomy so that your business isn't impacted and at the same time you minimize the risks. Eventually, you have to be able to fulfill all the data subject requests on time that regulations have introduced. It means that you have to be able to automate as much as possible to fasten the requests and the processes so that it's less of a burden for you and for your employees. Now, let's dig into one element of Talend's platform that will help you achieve those three goals. Talend Data Catalog. Data Catalog empowers organizations to create a single source of trusted data. In order to discover all personal data in an automated manner, Talend Data Catalog offers automated data crawling. So it crawls your data landscape and uses machine learning and smart semantics to automatically discover all your data, whether it is located in a data lake or SaaS application, cloud or on-premises data warehouses. When data is ingested, the data catalog will automatically find it, profile it, and determine if it is critical data element, such as a social security number or personal email. Once the personal data is identified and located, we can control it, and at least start to control it. And to start controlling it, you need role-based access to data, as well as end-to-end data lineage and metadata documentation. Talend Data Catalog offers full audit tracing and review processes. It also needs to draw the links between the data, and it provides powerful search and browsing capabilities to understand where the data come from. Last but not least, Talend Data Catalog offers a broad connectivity support. We are well aware of the diversity of the data landscape in your organizations, so we can connect to any data point. Let's see how it works in the following demonstration. Let's start by the scenario of this demonstration. We will show you how we can discover and control personal data, and in particular personal identifiable data. In this particular case, we have three data sources. We have an e-commerce database, which is a Microsoft Server SQL, a Salesforce instance, and a legacy ERP using MySQL underneath. So Talend is used to ingest the data from those three sources to a data warehouse, Snowflake. There are also transformations being done within the data warehouse using ELT components. So using Talend Data Catalog, we will show you how this data can be discovered using semantics and documented using a business glossary. We'll also show you how we can understand it better through lineage and semantic lineage, as well as metadata harvesting. Once we've identified how to find personal data into our systems and to protect it, we will leverage Data Catalog APIs and Talend Data Fabric to create a solution to automate the right to access and the right to be forgotten. So let's get started. Okay, so this is Snowflake, and I want to show Snowflake first because we have our Salesforce instance in this demo, and we are ingesting the Salesforce contact information into Snowflake, like you can see here. And in Snowflake, you can look at the data, look at the preview of the data at least. And here we can see the contacts coming from Salesforce. And we have, of course, first name, email, etc. So when you're used to Snowflake, that you know where the data is, when you have the expertise, it's easy to find the data and to know what to do with the data. But imagine if you have like hundreds of tables. How can you really keep up with all the data you have and know where the personal data is? So really, would it be great to have a tool that really catalog all your data assets and all the relationships they have between them. So this is what really Talend Data Catalog is about, and let me introduce Talend Data Catalog. Here we go. So this is Talend Data Catalog. So let's log in. So from this main dashboard, the user has direct access to the information they care about. And I'd like to point out that these dashboards are entirely customizable and role-based. So it means that you have different roles, and for each roles you can associate different dashboards with different content. Another key differentiator with Talend Data Catalog is the ability to automatically crawl, capture, and catalog changes from existing and newly connected data sources. Furthermore, because Data Catalog is connected to Talend Data Fabric, it can capture the actual transformation logic applied to data along with the entire process flow. And I'm actually going to show you that later. But first, let's see how the crawling and connectivity is set up. So I'm going to the Manage tab and to the Configuration Manager. So from the Configuration Manager, you can actually add all your connectivity. And for example, if I want to create a physical data model, I would be able to choose an import bridge. And a bridge is really a metadata connector for Talend Data Catalog. And as mentioned earlier, we have a broad connectivity to connect to databases or a SaaS application, so that really we cover all your data systems. In the context of this demo, we already have created all the items and all the connectivity into the Talend Data Catalog. So we have the Microsoft Server SQL, MySQL, Power BI, Salesforce, Snowflake, and Talend, of course. And when we want to configure the crawling, we just have to say, okay, I want to run the crawler every day or every hour, so that all the new changes, the new tables, the new data schemas are updated accordingly. So now let's go back to the main dashboard. Let's review the enterprise data architecture, actually. So the enterprise architectures gives you a high-level understanding of where the data within the organization is coming from and going to. It is automatically created by the catalog by understanding the relationships between the different systems and data flows using metadata. We are using Talend for the core processing, as you can see here, and we are landing the data into a central data warehouse, a Snowflake. So the data is coming from the three data sources that I have listed before, and we also have a Power BI on top of Snowflake to run some analytics. Because most data privacy regulations require organizations to know precisely where data is located, data lineage is crucial for completing an impact analysis in the event of data breaches, for example. So this allows data administrators to trace all the applications and related processes that could be affected. So you start to understand why it's so important to have this map, this view of all your systems and how the data communicate. Let's go further and look at a particular data element, such as a table in the data warehouse. So I can use the faceted search from Talend Data Catalog to search for this table. So my table, I want the contact table, the table we were looking at earlier from Snowflake. So from there we can find, actually we can see the schema, technical schema of the table. What I can do here is also look at the data flow. So that's also important. So thanks to Talend Data Catalog, we can start to understand the relationships between the different systems and the role of Snowflake in this example as our landing zone for our data. So really Data Catalog have like harvested all the sources as well as the Talend processes, and it understands that Talend is taking the data from Microsoft Server SQL, MySQL, and Salesforce and pushes the data to Snowflake. Let's go further and expand to the column level. So here we can even see at the column level how the data is flowing between the different systems. And for example, here, if I'm taking from the contact table again, if I'm selecting the phone number field and I'm highlighting it, I can see from the lineage, data lineage, I can see that this particular attribute is coming from Salesforce. Now, if I'm selecting another attribute, maybe a more complex one, the name, for example, and let's highlight it again. Here it's more complex. The name attribute takes its value potentially from two different data sources, the Microsoft Server SQL or the Salesforce. And what's interesting with Talend Data Catalog, it's gonna harvest the metadata from the Talend jobs and data flows. And here in the bottom, actually here, we can even see that we can see the particular rules that is used to select which values is taken. So in this case, for the name, we see that Salesforce is the preference, but if the Salesforce value is empty, then the Microsoft SQL value would be selected. So the point is that we can show complex lineage within Talend Data Catalog and understand the provenance and really the lineage of the data. But the challenge is, it's okay as long as you know what you're looking for in the technical systems, because you have the technical schema, the technical metadata, but sometimes, you know, the name are not self-explanatory. Sometimes you cannot really say if this field or another field has a really personal identifiable data. So how do you do in that case? And this is where I want to introduce you to semantic types. So I'm going back to the manage and I'm going to the semantic types. So what semantic types are really? So semantic types are really the nature of the data within a column or field. So a critical capability to implementing a successful data catalog is the use of semantic types to define and map new data elements as they enter the system. This is important because properly implemented semantic types can automate data classification as the data flows into the systems. Data catalog provides many predefined semantic types across different industry verticals. Here we want to see, for example, the email. In the case of the email, the semantic type is defined as a regular expression. So it means that this format and this regular expression is going to be used to detect emails within the data. And if a lot of email, like a majority of emails, are detected into one column, then the column will be flagged as an email and determined as an email. Let's take another example, such as the country. So in this case, the country semantic type is defined as a list of possible values. So in this case, if in a column you have a lot of values that fit into this list, then the column would be flagged at a country. So you start to understand that using these semantic types, we can really detect personal data such as email, SSN, first name, last name, etc. And this is what we are going to use to actually find our personal data. Really, Talend Data Catalog now has a very powerful set of rules that can infer all the personally identifiable data across all the different systems and establish their semantic lineage. So, like data lineage, semantic lineage follows the data from the sources to the destinations from a semantic perspective, meaning a physical link does not need to be present between the term definition and the data element. By applying the semantic definition, the data catalog can systematically classify data elements as they enter the systems. Even with few systems, keeping track of all these data elements can be very complex. So really, Talend Data Catalog removes this complexity through its use of a business glossary. So let me introduce you to the business glossary. So let's look at the glossary, and under private data, we actually have different terms that have already been created. So let's take a look at the first name, for example. So for each term, we have a definition that everybody agreed on in the company. We also have a semantic type to this business term, right? So now you can understand that with those terms, and in particular the PII terms, which is personal identifiable information, we've linked, so it's a group of terms, and we've linked all the semantic types to the terms. We can find all the personal data into our systems using this business glossary. So you now understand how we can trace and locate personal identifiable data and provide full traceability on the data. So let's see how that works. So here I'm going to semantic flow and the diagram, and I'm going to expand right away to the column level. So on the left, using the glossary and tying the semantic types to the terms, we can see that we have our terms, and we can find where those terms are flagged on all the fields in our different systems, whether it's Snowflake or Microsoft SQL Server, etc. And we even have the information on the Power BI reports, because I told you earlier that we also have connected to Power BI. So for example, if I want to know where the address field that is used in a Power BI report is coming from, right, I can highlight again the semantic lineage that you can see here, and we can yes, using semantic lineage we can see that the address is coming from Snowflake, that is coming from Microsoft SQL Server. So really here you can see the importance of using semantic lineage to find personal data in an automated manner without requiring manual tasks and power. Now, if we go back to, for example, the first name term, in addition to define and to label those terms, you can also create custom attributes. And here we created a anonymization custom attributes. And these attributes really define the policy of the anonymization of this term, which is going to be applied to all the fields that are as flagged with this term. And in this case, if we want to anonymize this term and value, we would replace all letters. If I'm using the phone term, the anonymization would be mask phone number, which are all functions that we can use in Talend Data Fabric to anonymize the data. So for example, if we have a production environment and a development environment, we could use this policy and use Talend Data Fabric to anonymize accordingly the data into the development environment. So really, by knowing where the data is located, it's now already easier to understand how we can really be compliant and, for example, respond easily to the right to access and other rights. And actually, let's go further and look at how we can really leverage Talend Data Fabric and Talend Data Catalog. So here is a custom dashboard where we have all our users, and we want to leverage Data Catalog APIs and then use Talend Data Fabric to look at all the information from a contact is. So for example, if I'm using this user, Mark Bonnet, I want to know where all the information, personal information from Mark are located. So I'm going to click on Access. And using this solution, it's actually underneath using the APIs to understand all the semantic lineage and find all the systems that have the information on Mark. And that way I will be able to create my report for this user that has requested his right to access. And we'll be able to provide a report with all the information we have on him. So that's one example how we can leverage the APIs and then the semantic lineage and lineage to really have all the information we need to be compliant and to really automate all the requests we have. Similarly, we could do the same for the forget, right to be forgotten. So really similarly, we would do the same, like we would forget it, and underneath, while it's loading, we are actually using Talend Data Fabric to go to Talend Data Catalog APIs to really anonymize all the data, because for some regulation, we need to wait like 30 days before really deleting data. So we are just anonymizing the data so that it won't be found in our production environment anymore. But if we want to revert, or if we need the data, we could do it. Okay, now it should be done if I refresh. Now this user has been really removed. So now let's go back to the slides. Okay, so that was our scenario. Let's go to the conclusion. So really, we have shown how we can be compliant while avoiding complexity by first discovering and controlling the personal data within all your systems, by automating as much as possible, by using data lineage as well as semantic lineage to really define the right semantics to find the right data. Then we've showed you how we can leverage business terms and policies to protect the data through anonymization, for example, and how we can use role-based access to Talend Data Catalog and to the data itself, so that we can democratize access and keep the business going on. And eventually, we have showed you how we can then create a solution to leverage both Talend Data Catalog and Talend Data Fabric to fulfill data subject requests on time by automating the retrieval of data for the right to access, and by automating the anonymization for the right to be forgotten, for example. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.